Hey Remoras, it's me, Mr. Sharx. So, evolution. It's either wonderful and sweet or a living nightmare. You either survive and thrive to start a dynasty or die with nothing to show for your existence. It's scary to think of how easily you and I could have never existed. As seen in the BBC's documentary, Walking With Monsters. Monsters, which we'll call to save time, were only alive for so long, is the final installment in the Walking With trilogy and is mostly based in the Paleozoic era, an era often overlooked in favor of the dinosaur-ruled Mesozoic. I mean, there is a 6-year gap between the release of Walking With Dinosaurs and Monsters and 4 years between Walking With Beasts and Monsters. Nonetheless, in 2005 we finally got to see the BBC's take on a time filled with diverse creatures, biomes, and events. There are 3 episodes that squeeze in the Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous, Permian, and also the Triassic, hence why I said mostly in the Paleozoic. That's 282 million years crammed into a runtime only half that of Walking With Dinosaurs and Walking With Beasts, and they didn't feel padded out at all. As a result, the time spent in every environment is very brief. The show is always jumping from one time period to the next to show the many wars fought for supremacy until the reptiles formed a monopoly in the latter half of the Triassic, an era that the whole documentary pretty much builds up to. Whereas Dinosaurs and Beasts shifts focus to a new setting every episode, Monsters has a point A to point B structure. There's a transition to every new setting done through an animation depicting the evolution of one animal to another. It's an important mechanic for the show. So what better way to look into evolution in its entirety than to go back to where it all began? So the documentary begins with a look at Earth 4.4 billion years ago. It was just another desolate world. Barren, inhospitable, and devoid of life. It seemed that it would be a wasteland until the sun eats the solar system for breakfast. Then out of literally nowhere, a random planet decided that having no future is better than having a future without life. The planet smashed into Earth, and there was debris flying everywhere, and it was so cool. Little did nobody at the time know that this impact would form the moon and the oceans, which is what the BBC believes created life. It's not like they gave an explanation. As water fills the earth like some sort of hostile nation in one of those insert war everyday videos, Sir Kenneth Branagh asks us,
but who would inherit this blue planet?
I don't care about the question, this intro's frickin' awesome! It sets the tone perfectly and shows us that this will be a massive leap forward from Dinosaurs and Beasts. Better special effects, having balance between entertaining and informing, and presenting a theme that will come up in every episode.
An epic war for our world.
He said epic war, that's kinda silly. I'm pumped, bruh! Our journey begins in the Cambrian period, over 500 million years ago. The Cambrian explosion had taken place and we see all sorts of strange creatures. Only in the water though. Nothing lives on land. At least, for now. Among those strange creatures are the trilobites, rather famous dudes from the Paleozoic era. For some reason they never get mentioned by name, they're just there to be feasted on by another bizarre arthropod, the Anomalocaris. As it crushes the trilobite into bits, Kenny goes into a monologue about how evil eyes are and how they started the ongoing conflict between predator and prey. This thing really takes its time eating the trilobite. It takes so long that Kenny goes into another rambling about the rise of arthropods and what the future holds for them, foreshadowing the creatures that the vertebrates will be fighting as the world changes. It's still going. Screw it, just get another one. Okay, here we get this epically awesome fight scene between 2 of these freaks in nature. What are they fighting for? Yunnan. Why? Well, China had been falling apart over and over and over again long before humans evolved, even in Cambrian times. Fossils found in Shengqiang show ancient arthropods in fighting stances with insignia next to their remains. They are warlords. They want to rule all of China, and they will fight to the death. It is here that we see the first instance of repeated footage. There's a handful of times in the documentary when footage gets recycled, but this case sticks out like a sore fin. It's lame enough to reuse animation, but here, the music is almost perfectly in sync. Finally, the battle ends when one Anomalocaris bends too far and bleeds his own blood. The victor just swims away, daydreaming about claiming the mandate of heaven. The loser is now at the mercy of the clan that loaned him $30 million in today's money, the Haikuichthys clan. A species that is not only the first ever fish, it is also the first ever vertebrate. Their leader, Nuts, Haikuichthys Nuts, declares that the Anomalocaris must pay off his debt by providing the clan with protection and food until it frickin' dies. But wait, there are no grocery stores in the Cambrian. How'll the Anomalocaris feed the Haikuichthys? This is only the beginning of the war for supremacy. The ancestors of humans can't live off screwing over warlords forever. The world around them is constantly changing, and to survive, they must change with it. I'm mixed on this gimmick. Of course it's cool that they connected all the stories in the series with one another, but it's easy to tell when the transition is about to be made because the model of the animal suddenly looks crappy. Additionally, this may lead to claustrophobic storytelling. We're going to have to devote at least most of a segment to a main character to keep the gimmick going. After all, this is supposedly the ancestor of humans. You've made your way onto the tightrope, BBC, better not fall off it. So we make a 112 million year jump to the late Silurian. That's right, the Ordovician period was completely skipped. Honestly, the Ordovician and Silurian aren't that much different from one another, but in choosing the Silurian, the second deadliest mass extinction in history was overlooked. That's right, the Ordovician-Silurian extinction event wiped out 85% of life on Earth. The popular theory is a tectonic collision that happened in the present-day United States. These mountains are fucking assholes! But did this need to be covered? That depends on whether or not your super-duper favorite prehistoric animal is the brachiopod. Moving on, welcome to the Silurian. When the fish began to look like fish, China was miraculously still ruled by the victor's lineage, and the squid were named after shapes.
The orthocone is a distant relative of squid and cuttlefish, but he's as long as a truck.
What, do they brag about the length of their radii? So basically in this corner, a cephalaspis, a random fish that the BBC picked to represent the human lineage in the Silurian. And in this corner, okay, snap back to reality. By reality, I mean footage of cephalaspis swimming. What suits them better, blue or green? They are on a 10 million mile long journey to the pool where they will lay their eggs. It is at this point when we see the state of land. I'm not sure if the air is breathable, and there seems to be no sign of intelligent life anywhere. Hello? Oh hey, Cooksonia. Shouldn't you be boosting the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere and serve as foreshadowing for the episodes that will precede this one? At long last, the cephalaspis have reached their destination. Now they must jump across this ridge and lay their eggs in the spawning pool. But there's a problem with that. The ridge slows the fish down, and if one gets stuck, they have to wiggle their way to the other side. While sliding into the spawning pool, they are vulnerable. After a moment of silence, Kenny says, well, there are many fish in this group, and the scorpions are dumb. The fish were without a doubt the better team. They'll come back in the fourth. Hey look, a bronto-scorpio needs to shed.
You can feel it! He's about to explode! You can taste it!
Our ancestors have survived. They've laid their eggs and are returning to the sea. Brain has triumphed over brawn.
Damn, Kenny is so salty that if he was an ocean, you'd be able to walk on him. You know what? I've had enough of the Silurian. Simon, evolve him now. At last, with efficient lungs and sufficient limbs at their disposal, the human lineage can walk tall. Be proud. Go amphibian! Welcome to the Devonian, when the land turned into a more appealing place for the human ancestors to set up shop. The Cooksonia have blossomed into forests and have filled the air with oxygen. Yeah, remember those little bastards? This is them now. Be careful who you make fun of in middle school. The ancestor of humans at this point is the Hynerpeton, which are amphibians. Amphibians must stay by the water because their thin skin can't maintain moisture and will dry out in minutes. So they aren't true landlubbers. The first group with that distinction are the arthropods, but that came with a catch. The crappy lungs that developed before all others couldn't supply their once big bodies with enough oxygen, so they had to get small. Kenny reluctantly congratulates them at first, but then gets noticeably giddy when this happens.
And now their role has been reversed. They've helped feed the growth of our amphibian ancestors.
Hey man, placoderm barbarians took over China. They're still dealing with that stuff. You know what else Kenny reluctantly does? Support our musical friend Toad, the de facto main character of this segment. Let's get this out of the way right now. Kenny hates amphibians. He just does. The hate train starts at Kenny talking about how much it sucks to be a Hynerpeton. Of course there's the issue with an amphibian's thin skin, but staying by the water is another big issue because the water is dangerous.
Oh, shit!
There are loads of other Hynerpetons swimming in the lake. With arthropods now weak and feeble, we need a new class to demonize. The shift is over. Get in the water. Have a swim. Look out for fish. They're now our enemies. Woo! Holy moly, a Stethecanthus! In a lake that is fresh water and is much bigger than what the surface makes it seem. Who am I to complain? Go boy! Guess that's why they're not called Stethecanthus's. This is a Hyneria, a big fish with a bottomless pit for a stomach. It ate a whole shark in one bite, yet it still wants more. It dispassionately chases Toad, and that is the Hyneria's downfall. Maybe if it put the thrill in the thrill of the hunt, it would have gotten to Toad before he escaped. So Toad is trying to protect his land. It's a lot of land. Having a lot of land means you're powerful. And girls dig powerful men. Tonight may be his last chance to show girls how powerful he is. He can't defend a lot of land forever, and the challenger will approach, instead of running away. Toad is like... And the second Hynerpeton is like, well, I'm sorry, I thought this was America. A confrontation like this can only be resolved in one way.
We'll now begin the push-up section. Ready? Begin. Down. Up. 1. Down. Up. 2. Down. Up. 3. Down. Up. 4. Down. Up. 5. Down. Up. 6. Down. Up. 7. Down. Up. 8. Down. Up. 9. Down. Up. 10. Down. Up. 11. Down. Up. 12. Down. Up. 13. Down. Up. 14. Down. Up. 15.
Hynerpeton culture states that the defender wins tiebreakers by default. Go get her, Toad. I believe in you. Morning comes. Toad hasn't. According to Kenny, this was his last chance. I guess he will be the dead end of his bloodline. Just kidding. Wait, what? Damn, that's a terrible transition. I would be freaking out right now, but I'm not eligible for monetization, so I don't care. Whoa! Hyneria, more like Voyernia. At least wait a few more seconds. Ready when you are. Okay, now. Oh, she missed. The Hyneria is just about to leave when Toad starts talking shit. There certainly was a line and Toad certainly crossed it. One thing Hynerius can't stand is naysaying. Rip Toad. His life ended. Just like this segment. I'm not as sad as I could be because I know the world is about to get gnarly. Toad was certainly not hard. I mean, look at his offspring. They look ready to be squeezed by Shrek for his toast. In a hard world where life is hard, you need to get hard yourself. Ooh, missed a spot over there, and you're good to go. Welcome to the Carboniferous, or the Pennsylvanian if you're a nerd. Certainly the Ashgabat of the Paleozoic era. Look at those trees. That aren't trees. Like you've never looked at anything before. And tell me, with a straight face, that they don't look like the lampposts. We need to talk about those little bastards from the Silurian again. It turns out that they were little drug dealers too. I'll go more in depth on them than I did in the previous video. They sold this air oxygen stuff at black markets. Sales were pedestrian. Not good enough. But then they started giving it away like a broken piñata. It was at that point oxygen's popularity skyrocketed. Fish grew legs to get them. Fish that didn't feel like growing legs were fine with the oxygen in the water. Guess who was laughing when algae blooms bloomed throughout the ocean? Prices going back up and then some didn't stop the rave, so everyone involved lived the American dream. In the Carboniferous, Earth's stonerism was at a level never seen before nor since. It grew out of this phase 10 million 30 years ago, so at that point it decided enough was enough and went sober for a little bit. Just for a little bit. The bottom of the barrel of Earth's rehabilitation is a story for another video. The story for this video is about the epiphany and jumping into the barrel from a high dive. In other words, Earth's prime, if you know what I mean. If you thought the 1960s were colorful, bruh. The negative 300 million 60s will make you feel like a mantis shrimp. The decade was shaped by who else but the arthropods. They benefited from this fad called oxygen stacking more than anyone else. In those days, there weren't a lot of options for escapism. The only other way to leave reality was to beat up vertebrates. Their words, not mine. They would become big and strong. Ironically, big and strong enough to return to work. Big and strong enough to take China back. Big and strong enough to shape the Carboniferous into one of the most distinct periods in Earth's history. Disclaimer. You can become big and strong by reading good books. Pop culture was dominated by arthropods. There wasn't a second of television time without the voice of a wild personality in that era. Consider the Blitzy Glitzy Spider, loved oxygen, 4 joints a day, by sea and by land. Let me explain. You 2000s kids are aware of that anti-cigarette imagine if it did to you on the outside what it did to you on the inside sentence. That shiz happened in real life. BGS bamboozled Kenny, the BBC, and negative 300 million 60s America into thinking she was a spider when she really was a...
You gotta be
deafening in here.
Please.
I see the look in your eye. And let me explain a few things. It's been a long time since you and I have been in the ring together. And a lot of things have changed. You look great. But obviously Mother Nature has not been too kind to me. I have heart problems. I've got this murmur that just won't seem to go away.
Austin Stunts the boss! Austin Stunts Mr. McMahon! Some things never change, gold. I was gonna say, but the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Now, the negative 300 million 60s were too dangerous to go out and about on your own. Even having food to go was ill-advised. My thoughts exactly. Another juggernaut from those times, Queen Elizabeth, rather iconic and summed up the late Carboniferous period well. She changed animals forever by popularizing wings. Never forget that without Queen Elizabeth, the birds, the bees, and the pterosaurs wouldn't have gotten off the ground. Paul McCartney's post-Beatles band would have been called Paul McCartney and Denny's. As her fame grew, so did her shadow. Most stars ended up being blocked from the sun. Like BGS, critics would turn against her and refer to her as Duchess BGS. Once you tripped out of the spotlight in those days, you were just another rando on the streets. Some celebs say they desire to be inconspicuous, but as we all know, the water always looks clear from the other side of the sandbar. BGS herself said that not having her abdomen kissed for a second for the first time in a decade was jarring. The third subject of the setting, Milhouse, would agree. Now take all 3 of these famous snobs and consider this. Would you be okay with your child buying their shit? Need I remind you that they opposed the civil rights movement? Okay, I can't talk about the negative 300 million 60s without mentioning the drastic cultural shift it prompted. At the time, the tetrapods were rapidly diversifying. But nobody cared. Amphibians aren't reptiliomorphs and reptiliomorphs aren't amphibians.
Amphibians.
But not to Kenny. He thought, who cares, they all live the same. By negative 300 million 63, tensions came to a head. A Proterogyranus, not just an amphibian, which, once again, it is not, ran into the one and only Milhouse besides all other people named Milhouse. Enough was enough for the Proterogyranus. Milhouse's statements had hurt his feelings one too many times. There was pushing, screaming, name-calling. It was a mess. Right when you thought things couldn't get any worse, they did. Two souls that had no business being with each other started a firestorm. Riots broke out across Laurasia. The autocratic regimes in Gondwana, including the Ding dynasty, stated their disgust while cackling to themselves. The outrage spread like nuclear cooties. No one was safe, not even BGS, who cheered the violence on while warm and cozy in her studio burrow. Earth was never the same after that. It hastily began to quit oxygen stacking and started an ad campaign against it, hoping to kill it off and take the nut jobs it produced with it. The Ashgabat of the Paleozoic came to a fiery end. Same with this segment of the documentary. Unfortunately, we do not have a Carboniferous placeholder to watch evolve and get us to the next period. Petrolachosaurus? That's on the opposite side of the amniotic split though. It doesn't matter, we spent so much time with the arthropods, this was doomed to be a jarring transition.
Their muscles and bones broaden and extend.
This is a lot to just go with, but we need to get to the most iconic period of the Paleozoic somehow. Welcome to the Permian, a world dominated by primitive synapsids. Isn't that right, Kenny?
They're part of a very special group of creatures called mammal-like reptiles.
Oh, Kenny. Reptile-like mammals would have been more suitable. To grossly simplify, there was an amniotic split, not an amniote split. I hope the person who coined this term is out of the field entirely with no exceptions. Thankfully, it's never barfed out again. I hate this conversation. By the Permian, the Earth was fighting some terrible withdrawal symptoms. Misguidance and misinformation caused the Earth to regularly switch between chills and fevers. One group that had to deal with this new and improved Earth were the Edaphosaurus-like synapsids. They're just minding their own beeswax, or at least trying to, with remnants of Queen Elizabeth's fanbase stating that her work will be studied by aliens to understand Earth's culture in 1,000 years. I'm not into this slice of life stuff, you know, it's called Action 52. I want some action. Oh, snap! I didn't say anything about selling my soul, did I? Here she is, one of the most famous, if not the most famous animal from the Paleozoic, the Dimetrodon like Edaphosaurus. Oh, that lady? That lady running at you? Lady Dimitrescu? Why do you care about her running? Why are you running?
The young Edaphosaurus didn't stand a chance.
Dimetrodon society is still a patriarchal society. Add to the fact that manners weren't invented yet, the sustenance Lady Dimitrescu desperately needs is now for the boy Dimetrodon-like girl Dimetrodons. I say desperately because she's on maternity leave. How can you put food on the table or pay your taxes when you have cute little responsibilities at home? Turn your back for one jiff and you failed as a parent by Dimetrodon standards. There are people calculating in the shadows
Like this carnivorous amphibian.
Reptilian morph like reptilian morph. Parenting has some pretty harsh requirements, but I for one believe in Lady Dimitrescu. And she performs as promised. She fights in the snow, she fights in the sun, she fights whatever the earth throws at her with a smirk-like smile. Anything done out of Earth's free will, the same one that made it a junkie, flopped. But those with literally any other free will were something to be reckoned with. Such as this not Lady Dimitrescu-like Dimetrodon who has the audacity to claim our heroine's hard work as her own.
If she takes over the mound, she'll dig out and kill the incubating young already inside.
But there is absolutely nothing that Lady Dimitrescu can't handle. Shitty weather, kids on our damn property, and you, a parasite. They have this epic fight. It goes on for hours and hours and hours, and then at a very critical point, it just gives you a do-it-yourself adventure. I'll play the game. My personal headcanon is that she has this giant mech suit hidden underground that she uses to finish off the fight. What, is that not regulation? What would you do differently in this scenario? Don't act like you wouldn't try to do the same. Things are looking up though. She can drop her dead-end job at Lazard, Condodactyl & Cohen and become a pirate that fights the tyrannical Dong dynasty. Objectively speaking though, she may not smash the physical in her current state. She's too worn out to stop this dude from...
Luckily, this large male has got his teeth into something more substantial than her young.
Oh, okay.
The amphibian.
Oh, that's a shame. No, it really is. How can I not feel sympathy as Kenny holds back a chuckle talking about the hunt?
The precious eggs are safe and ready to hatch.
Lady Dimitrescu, this is a massive dub for mothers everywhere. You've given birth to the first and only adult Dimetrodon like baby Dimetrodons. No, the BBC wasn't being lazy, the fully grown sales are for brand recognition. They're plopped into the world with no experience or training and society is already like, good luck. You're up against grown-ups now, they do this stuff for a living. This is how they feed their families.
They roll in dung, something the adults can't stand.
Well, with that over with, we must make an awkward transition back to the Adaphosaurus-like Dimetrodon. Remember, we gotta keep the chain going, BBC. Okay. You can say goodbye to Lady Dimitrescu. Why does the model of the animal suddenly look crappy?
You're a butt-fucking quitter.
Actually, it's fine. It's okay. I hate continuity. I'm gonna keep the Star Wars intro gag in to get us to the next segment. Welcome to the late Permian. If it were a country, Donald Trump would call it a shithole. The world is a desert without the resources that would otherwise make it worth caring about. The only liquid being extracted from the ground is lava, and the only kind of gas spreading its influence is of the greenhouse variety. Both of these roads lead to the intense volcanic activity in the Siberian traps. In short, Earth-stopping cold turkey has hit its apex of not goodness. For this segment, we will be looking into what is known as the Great Dying. Kenny never refers to it as that, probably because the BBC couldn't trademark it. What's happening at this point in history gives the Ordovician Silurian Extinction Event Company, Superior Company. Kenny will go on to say,
and wipe out 90% of life on Earth.
Which is just about right, but he doesn't describe the overall picture. In a sense, there are two sides of the story. On land, the insane amount of carbon dioxide unleashed in Siberia acted as a blanket that kept the sun's heat from leaving the Earth. Not to mention, it continued to let in even more of the sun's heat because that's just how life is. The global temperature reached maddening heights, entire ecosystems were destroyed, and 70% of terrestrial species didn't see the end of it. In the water? Well, water absorbs carbon dioxide really well. Certain creatures rely on stable carbon dioxide levels to maintain their beautiful bodies. More carbon dioxide also means less oxygen, and the oxygen in the water dropped by 80%. 80! Fish suffocated, exoskeletons dissolved, shells dissolved, coral disintegrated, and 95% of marine species didn't see the end of it. Carbon dioxide was the big constant in the explanations. I think you know where I'm going with this. A relapse was bound to happen, but to see the world switch to something even more destructive hurts my soul. Earth, look at me. Look at me! You're becoming your sister. Unbeknownst to Earth, and knownst to me, Mr. Sharx, there are people living there that want to make their lands a better place however they can. But when the people at the top are incompetence incarnate, there's nothing you can do but rise up. So basically, the Sing dynasty. Tyrannical, corrupt, ruler is 14. They've doubled down on their feudalist society, which led to territorial expansion away from the Middle Kingdom, which included moving into the glass-boned, paper-skinned land of Siberia. Maybe checking what was under the hood at a time like this wasn't such a good idea, you bozos. The sheer existence of a loyalist faction is absolutely bewildering. The loyalists are best described as disappointed parents that still love their child. Their strategy is to exploit the religious population of the Eastern Hemisphere with eerie recordings warped and twisted to sound like an opera from the depths of hell. Their other shtick is guerrilla warfare. They go from place to place in large groups and drain the resources of their undersupplied adversaries. Despite looking like the strongest faction of them all, they are actually not the strongest faction of them all. I'm no psychic ninja warrior, but this might be because their morale is below sea level. Desertion tends to happen. Don't let Sing Dynasty propaganda tell you otherwise. Oh no, what is this? A private has gone AWOL? Who could have seen this coming? Perfect time for a communist soldier to strike and drain the abandoner of his flesh. For this act of treachery, this coward will not be on any memorials. Therefore, he will not live forever. Okay, next up is the communists. That's with an asterisk. Karl Marx wouldn't be born for another 100 million years, but they are real communists, I swear. Here they are draining a large body of water in the middle of a desert. Apparently on land, it doesn't get more large and lethal than this. They're so cool that these are the guys that destroyed the 250 million year continuity that was the focal point of this series. Good job, guys. Do all pelycosaurs look the same to you? Moving right along now. Much to the attention of the global stage, the Communist faction is the first entity to allow women to enter the high command, such as Natalia Crunch, known by her underlings as Captain Crunch. I wouldn't say she's a good role model though. Throughout her career, she'll put much of her energy into hitting on the soldiers. Since the beginning of time, there are only two types of girls in this world. The ones that start with a hey, and the ones that start with this. Hey boys, how do you like your sediment-rich water? Cream? Sugar? Or do you want me to pee in it? You look at them and bam, offense. In all actuality, they follow Mao Zedong's philosophy of men over land. Land can be retaken, men cannot. Wow, a big market team embracing analytics. There goes the parody of the Civil War. This is gonna be so boring, says you. Well, A, I haven't covered all the factions yet, and B, look at how it's working out for them. They just gave their water to the enemy. How nice of them. Somehow, this move didn't harm them the most. Nobody suffers a worse defeat in this scenario than
A giant amphibian labyrinthodont.
he did it. What kind of reaction were you expecting? This kind?
A giant amphibian labyrinthodont.
There. Best of both worlds. Here on the Mr. Sharx channel, I give the player options. It's been 110 million years since we've seen an actual amphibian. Barely enough time for Kenny to settle down with the racism. And by settle down, I mean revert to just above Devonian levels. Trash talking, but without the sympathy that made the Hynerpeton monologue sorta tolerable. Alright, to be completely honest, Kenny more so gives off "the future is now, old man" vibes. Okay, can we look at this shot? And then look at this one? And this one. The Labyrinthodont, not just a giant amphibian, which it is, congratulations Kenny, utilizes ambush. You're fucked. So out of the three factions, ask yourself this. Who has the best chance at losing the war for China the least painfully? Take into consideration the fourth and final group embroiled in the hunt.
Diectodon, a hardy little burrower, just half a meter long.
The Diectodon clan. Unfortunately shortened to Diek clan, these guys know their way around the strategies of warfare. They are willing to die for their cause. To them, the Sing dynasty lied about having the Mandate of Heaven. In their eyes, it was just a political tool to steal the trust of the Chinese people. The Dieks believe in themselves, and they believe in the gods. Perhaps the gods believe in the Dieks on top of all that. The late Permian requires its participants to adapt as quickly as things have gone to shit. Kenny says it's perfect for reptiles. No. It's perfect for the Diek clan, because they're not reptiles, BBC. Despite having the worst infighting issues out of all four of the factions, they are unstoppable. The burrows they dig are as important to survival in a hellscape as the air conditioner. It's too hot, the Dieks enter the hole. Nothing to eat, you may find sustenance that the drought can't ruin. Commies going on the offensive? Well, they can't touch this. They're too legit to quit. Their opponents fell out of the standings one by one. The Loyalists couldn't handle the heat, so they left the kitchen. The Rheinsuchus, not just a Labyrinthodon either, Kenny.
Don't make me laugh, no.
And the Communists, as powerful as they seemed, collapsed like it was the late 1980s. Small animals typically make it through mass extinctions. Natalia didn't want her boys less than 9 feet long. Well, come on out, Major Diek. Time to claim the Mandate of Heaven. Time for a new China. Time to really kill off the continuity that has lasted almost 300 million years. You could say they broke it at the end of episode 2, but there is no bigoted technicality to speak of. Anyway, 2 million years is enough time to check on Earth's progress to sobriety. Last time, there was a lot to be desired. Now, well, 248 million years ago. Welcome to the Triassic, where inbreeding reigns supreme. The Diak clan's descendants have matured into Lystrosauruses, who now go by Diak Dynasty. They're big, they're strong, they're everywhere, and they're everyone. 52% of the times creatures were a Lystrosaurus. They are so everyone that scientists use them as evidence for continental drift. The Diak Dynasty didn't just control China or Siberia, they controlled all of the former Gondwana, a dream since the OG period. How did this happen? Are their tusks the best invention since wings? Well, there was nothing that could stop them. Was in bold, italics, and underline. This segment is about their predictably quick downfall. As funny as it would have been for these strange creatures to be the dominant species for another 30 million years, it's time to pay up. Pay up to the gods that motivated them into taking over China. The Diak Dynasty claims to have the mandate of vengeful gods that are to be feared, no questions asked, but they're actually decent. They love the Diak Dynasty, but they love the world more. The Diak Dynasty is rampaging throughout the entire world, eating up all the vegetation the Earth has to show for its recovery. This must end. The only way to eliminate this issue is to kill them off. Kill them all off. The gods zero in on this particular herd of Lystrosaurus to experiment with new techniques. With the hounds released, Project Maria is a go. The strategy is to use the hounds to wait for dark, sneak attack, bite, envenomate, and dart away. This process is cheap, lethal, and not a fun way to die. You kinda wanna be there for the Lystrosaurus, but Kenny says the Lystrosauruses are stone cold. They show that life goes on within you and without you, like a Lystrosaurus herd. They surge onward as if nothing happened. They don't flee for their lives, nor do they stop to check on their buddy. Sickening. This loss was a hiccup at worst. Not good enough for the gods that want them dealing with at least a persistent cough. Back to the drawing board. It's clear they need to move faster. They thought about bringing lines to the Triassic period via time travel, but that's so fucking dumb. Fret not, there are reptiles to be batshit terrified of in the Triassic either way. The gods understand the Lystrosaurus are heading towards a river. Then it hit them. Chasmatosaurs. I assume two of the greatest nightmares of humanity are stepping on a crocodile and being snuck up on by a shark. I feel for the Lystrosaurus, and it only gets worse. The gods have a safety net in case the plan doesn't yield good results. The Schizolystro. More on it later. No matter what, the Chasmatosaurs will be eating like kings. Whoa, hold the conch shell. 3 of these animals that we've been introduced to look familiar. Like I've seen them come together once before. Yeah, that's right.
Just keep your eye on this one because it's about to become the dinosaurs.
No, that's wrong. Sorry, Bill Wars fans. This is the guy whose children will be the dinosaurs. Euparkeria. Where to begin with this guy? Well, like the Lystrosaurus, his ancestors also made it through the Great Dawn, which means he's also too legit to quit. He didn't become fat and complacent like the Diictodon. He's still innovating and bettering himself. It looks kinda stupid now, but in the future it'll be hip. He's special. He was born to do great things. And you know what?
Euparkeria will lay the foundations for a new group of reptiles, the dinosaurs.
They were right. Back to the main story. The Lystrosaurus herd has reached the river. Crossing it is easier said than done, as its width changes every time new stock footage is shown. There are good eats on the other side, as well as a house and a car and some happiness. But as you can see, it isn't enough motivation. Because Kenny says they're smart enough to understand that they themselves are good eats. The gods aren't out of tricks though. There is no better time to see the Schizolystro in action. Hey, it's me, the voice in your head. Excellent. The subject has taken the plunge. All that can be done now is to wait. So, his buddies. That's not a good word to use. Co-workers are standing back thinking the first guy will be good enough nutrition for the Chasmatosaurs, who are making their way gently down the stream. But that means more plants for the first guy if he does make it across. They'll jump in soon enough. Speaking of which, it's vital the first guy gets ashore so the gods can use him again for future slaughters. Unfortunately, the Chasmatosaurs aren't aware of the plan. Kenny said some of them haven't eaten since the last Lystrosaurus migration. Why should they give a fuck? Hopefully they get distracted by the fact that the plan is working. More Lystosauruses are jumping in with a false sense of security. That's part 1 taken care of. But did the Schizolystro make it across? He did. Oh, you almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that. Ooh. At least he's relatively made it across, which means that the gods won't feel bad for engaging in a mild amount of tomfoolery. These guys, however, the Chasmatosaurs will take care of it anyway. Perfect. He has made it to the other side. Now kill them all. Kill them all. Dead! Okay, my behavior may have been questionable this entire segment, but think of the good that is being done here. The gods are saving the Antarctic wildlife and ecosystem that I hope lasts until the 21st century. I'm a motherfucking shark, but even I find that image a tad nightmarish. Oh, that? I'll swim and sleep like a baby does. You know, for as much shit as the amphibians have been subjected to throughout this entire series, I gotta say, the Lystrosaurus blows them out of the water for being the worst treated animal in this entire documentary series. Kenny himself is speechless for a whole 63 seconds, which means I gotta shut the fuck up. This is how it was likely to go even without divine intervention. The supremacy of the Lystrosaurus wasn't going to plateau. Stronger predators and hungrier herbivores will emerge from the rubble of the Great Dying. Kenny's time as a fan of this class has ended. I'll give him credit, he managed to remain loyal for about 50 million years worth of content. But it doesn't matter. He rushes through their descent into irrelevance like he didn't even know that the Lystosauruses were animals with hopes and dreams.
But the brief glory days of these strange mammal-like reptiles will soon be gone.
It's justified though. Clearly it is time to move on to the next chapter. The Euparkeria spawns in via console commands for some good old symbolism. He wanders through a field of dead non-mammalian synapsids and those weird archosaurs that peaked in Middle Triassic school. The stage is set for the Euparkeria to show that he comes from a family that reads good books.
His descendants will be known as the most notorious monsters of them all. Dinosaurs.
Yeah, but like, what time is it, BBC? What else is there to say? The world is no longer a synapsid's playground. Their ultimate rival innovated while they stagnated. Kenny has left them. He doesn't care enough to reflect on what we've witnessed for just a second. This is a good time to say that Monsters is the weakest of the trilogy, due in massive part to how its animals are portrayed and treated. On top of only 2 segments not being just watch animals kill, fight, and die in all seriousness, the ending is oddly insulting. Dinosaurs and Beasts got ominous endings that showed the audience how fragile and unpredictable life is while being accompanied by unforgettable music and input from Kenny. Here, Kenny makes the themes of evolution, dominance, and survival that we were subjected to all just prologue to the rise of the dinosaurs. The closing track is Time of Titans, a Walking with Dinosaurs track through and through. The synapsids, at this point sliced down to cynodonts, are done dominating. I ask you, my mammalian remoras, for your family members that toiled through the Mesozoic, there's nothing you can do but find solace in their predicament. Believe it or not, there's a lot to appreciate. Necessity is the mother of invention. With hungry dinosaurs here, there, and everywhere, laying eggs is a liability. Better give birth to live young instead. They aren't completely helpless, but you gotta look out for them. Give them love and milk using those body parts humans like for some reason. But you can't help your pupsters if you can't help yourself. So you have to go outside with critical thinking, strong hearing, and a mustache. It may not be much to appreciate now, but warm blood, fur, and a capability to squirm into any ecological niche, just like Mesozoic reptiles, make up a fantastic foundation to build on when you get a second chance at world dominance. When, in bold, italics, and underlined, life is full of bullshit that we have no control over, but you're still here to do something about it. That is a blessing once you reminisce on the obstacles these lineages had to hurdle alongside others that failed, the creatures with no living relatives, the creatures that peaked, and the creatures that got eliminated from their families. For all of history, more has gone wrong than right. Retreating to safety is treated like some sort of humiliating defeat when it is anything but, because there is no greater privilege than being alive.